Hey guys, it's Miss Cuban here. In this lesson, we're going to talk about slope formula and how do you get the formula and how can you use it. Because sometimes you're not going to be given a graph and you still have to find the slope of a line that you're going to be given. So that's what I'm going to show you. But before I do, one thing I always recommend, these graphs are not perfectly mine. I did borrow them, or I am using them for my videos, so I just want to give credit to the owner. The owner is maneuvering the middle, so I have to state that first, just out of respect. I always respect others. And so now let's dig deep into slope. Slope. We learned in the slope of a graph. When you find slope of a graph, you are looking for your rise and you are dividing it by your run. And your run is your x-axis, and your rise is your y-axis. And that is your slope. So I'm going to do that with this graph. And so I'm taking my 2 points on the graph, and I'm making a right triangle. And so now I'm going to calculate my rise. To do that, I need to make sure I know how the y's are counting by. So I'm looking at my y-axis and I notice 2, 4, 6, 8. They're counting by 2's. So when I count my rise, I'm going to count by 2's. 2, 4, 6. It is equal to 6. Then I'm going to count my run. My x-axis is also counting by 2's. So I'm going 2, 4, 6, 8. So right now, my slope is 6 eighths. So now, what if I don't have, before I move on, Miss Cuban forgot a very important step. I also need to see if it's positive or negative. So I'm going to read my graph from left to right, and it's going up, so I know my answer is positive. I don't want to forget that step. Don't ever forget it. And so now I'm going to create a formula for this. I know my 2 points are 8, 10, and 16, 16. And if I read my graph from left to right, the first point I see is 8, 10, and the second point I see is 16, 16. I know that my rise was my y's. So I'm supposed to get 6 from my y's. My y's is 16 and 10. I get 6 if I subtract them. 16 minus 10 gives us 6. I'm going to look at my x's now. I know my x's is 16 and 8. And if I subtract 16 and 8, I get 8. Which happens to be the exact same as the slope that we found with a triangle. So that will be my formula. But Miss Cuban, that's not a formula. Okay, that's okay. We're going to do it right now. I know 16 was my second point, and it was y2. And I know that 10 is also a y, but it was from the first point. So I'm subtracting them. My x's, I said 16 was my second x, and I'm subtracting by my first x. This is your formula. You will use this formula anytime to find slope. It will work for all situations, and even graphs, tables, equations. You can use that formula to help you. So let's do some practice. Okay, so here's an example. I'm given 2 points, only the points, and I know my formula for slope is my second y minus my first y, and I've divided it by my second x minus my first x. In this problem, my y's are 0 and 3, and my first point that they give us is 4 and 25/100, 0. And then my second point they give us is 3 and 5/10, 3. So this means that I'm going to take my second y, which is 3, take away 0, and then divide by my second x, 3.5 minus 4 and 25/100. And now I just simplify that. I can actually solve it. 3 minus 0 is 3. And then I'm going to take my 3 and 5/10 and take away 4 and 25/100. But I know that 3 is smaller than 4, so I actually have to reverse it, and I know it's going to be a negative. So when I subtract, I get negative 0.75. And then the last thing I need to do is I need to divide them. And if you have a calculator, I would recommend you plug this, what I'm circling right now, the actual equation, into your calculator, and you're going to skip all the little steps that I'm doing below. If you don't have a calculator, the steps below is great for you to be doing, and you can check your work with a calculator. So when I divide, my 3 goes on the inside, is my dividend. My 75/100 is my divisor. I have to move my decimal twice to get my divisor as a whole number. And then I will divide. So I know that 75 plus 75 is 150, plus 75 is 225, plus 75 is 300. So 75 goes into 3 0 times, 75 goes into 30 0 times, but it goes into 300 4 times. So my answer is negative 4. That is my slope. Let's try one more problem, and this time we'll try it in a table. Okay, so here's another example, and this one was a table. So the table shows the distance that Andy and his friends have left on the road trip based on the number of hours they have driven. Find the rate of change or slope. First, I need to determine what is my x and what is my y. I know that x is my independent variable. So if I'm going on a road trip, the variable that does not depend on anything is the time. Time is always going. It never depends on something else. So my x is going to be my hours. My y is dependent. So how many miles remains will depend on what time is left. So that is my y. So now I'm going to choose 2 points. I only need 2 points. And I'm going to write my formula down. Always write it down. minus the second x minus the first x. And I'm going to plug them in. My first point is the first one in the table. My second point is my second one. So now I'm going to take my y's. My second y is 240. And I'm taking away 360. And my second x is 3. And my first x is 1. So now I'm going to simplify. Well, 240 minus 360 is going to give me a negative integer. And I'm going to subtract them. And I will notice that I get 120. And my x, 3 minus 1 is 2. And so I just simplify by dividing now. And I know that 2 goes into 1 0 times. But it goes into 12 6 times. And 2 can go into 0 0 times. So my slope is negative 60. That is my rate of change. I hope this helps you with finding slope with a formula. Practice it, watch the videos many times, make up your own problems. If you need help, I'm here. Just let me know. Have a great day, guys.